It is officially Super Bowl week, and we are less than 1 week away from the Seattle Seahawks and New England Patriots kicking off Super Bowl 60. And while we're not talking about the big game today, we're actually going to be talking about the 10 coaches that were just hired to their new teams. We're going to break down how each coach fits into each team, what each team is going to look like, and what my prediction is for the future. But before we get too much further, make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. It really does help me out here, and I want to thank every single one of you that's already subscribed. Also, make sure that you follow me on X at _Justin_sports. That's where I kind of do a lot of, shit talking, but it's a lot of fun, so feel free to follow me there. And if you feel that I've earned it today, please feel free to hit that subscribe button as well. It really does help me grow here. But let's jump right into the video. So like I mentioned, we're going to go through each and every team, who their new hire is, where they came from, what the outlook's going to be like, everything like that. So let's jump into number 10. It's going to be the Arizona Cardinals hiring Mike LaFleur. The Cardinals had a nightmare 2025. Finished dead last in the NFC West at 3-14 with a brutal 9-game losing streak to close out the season. The defense was the league's worst in points allowed. They allowed 488. Kyler Murray dealt with nagging injuries again, and he's now being rumored to possibly be released or traded away from the Cardinals. The O-line was a revolving door. Part of the reason Kyler's probably hurt a lot, and they just couldn't generate any consistency. While they do have some young talent like Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride, it is pretty much a full rebuild mode, especially if they move on from Kyler. They did let Jonathan Gannon go after a few seasons, and he is a defensive-minded head coach, so they went with the exact opposite and hired Mike LaFleur, an offensive coordinator from the Los Angeles Rams. Yes, he is the brother of Matt LaFleur, current head coach of the Green Bay Packers. And why this hiring is not my favorite, nothing against Mike, it is his first time being a head coach with a team who is not looking great. They have a lot of holes to fill. They aren't sure where they're going with quarterback. He is not going to be able to run the same kind of system he did in Los Angeles, especially with people like Stafford, Adams, Nakua, Williams. You're not going to have that in Arizona. You basically have McBride and Harrison, which, there's definitely a step down from what you had in Los Angeles. Now, where it is looking nice is they do look like they have a bit of cap room here. They are projected to be at about $42 million in cap space. That is nice and healthy to bring in some talent, especially if they are able to restructure some deals, or if they are able to trade away Murray, trade away some other players that relieves them in some cap space. You could get some more to help that rebuild get started immediately. Where the Cardinals are going to struggle is they are not going to be a top destination. That NFC West is tough. You have a team in the Super Bowl, team that was 1 game away from the Super Bowl, and another team that was a few games away from the Super Bowl. You are fully at number 4 in that division, and it's not looking good. Making the playoffs, you are going to have to be a wild card team, so that means you're going to have to beat out just about every other second-tier team in their division. It's going to take some time. If they stick with Kyler and the system works for them, I could see them going anywhere from like 5 to 6 wins. That's kind of my realistic projection at this point before the draft. If they move on from Kyler, I don't like the quarterback market. I think it's going to take time. I think free agency, like people like Linderbaum and other big offensive linemen, are going to go other places that are a little more suited for the Super Bowl. So I think this is going to be more of a long rebuild, to the point where I even could see LaFleur being maybe one and done if it's that bad. So all in all, I'm sorry, Cardinals fans. Number 9, the Miami Dolphins hiring Jeff Hafley. Dolphins ended their 2025 season at 7-10. The offense was Hill got hurt, Tua kind of cratered. Their real only bright spot was Achane. Their defense was okay, but not a lot to be desired. So they ended up letting Mike McDaniel go, and he ended up moving on to the Los Angeles Chargers as their offensive coordinator.
Not really an opening statement guy, but I will open with this statement. I'm fired up to be here. Family's fired up to be here, and shoot from the hip with whatever questions you got.
And I really like that. I think he's going to be able to unlock Herbert. And just like the Cardinals, the Dolphins are going the opposite of their former head coach and selected a defensive-minded guy in Jeff Hafley. Hafley was the Packers defensive coordinator. He also has no NFL head coaching experience. So those are, always going to be a red flag, because you never know how people are going to transition. Some people have no problem, like Liam Combs,
Duval,
or D'Amico Ryans. People like that, they can, obviously turn a team around in a year. Some guys, it takes a little bit longer. So again, it's not an immediate doom and gloom, but it is a red flag to a degree. But the problem with the Dolphins is they do not have cap space. They're projected to be negative $20 million. They're going to have to restructure or cut a lot of guys, and that's not going to be good. The benefit is that they are in Miami, which is a destination because it's South Beach. I'm not too worried about players, being attracted there, but there's a lot of holes that need to be filled and not a lot of money to do it. Actually, no money to do it. You're negative 20 in the hole. I do think they're going to have to stick with Tua because his contract is literally insane. Even if they trade him, they still have to eat a lot of dead cap, and especially with being this non-cap compliant, this is going to be a situation where I just feel like Hafley is going to be a bridge coach. He's not going to be there long term. Basically, just get them through the shithole that they're in with cap space, get a couple losing seasons, and then move on from him, and then get their real guy when they can draft a quarterback and everything. So I don't see the Dolphins really being able to take that step with their cap space, with where they're drafting, with their needs. It's not looking good. So Hafley, it's nothing 100% on him, but he's got a lot of damage control to do, and I don't know if I really trust it. Number 8, the Cleveland Browns hiring Todd Monken. Cleveland Browns fans, you thought you had a future. You thought you could basically get Deshaun Watson and get to the playoffs. Well, the Deshaun Watson experiment has been horrible, and it got your 2-time Coach of the Year fired. Kevin Stefanski was fired after a 5-12 season, and let's just face it, some quarterback drama. It wasn't just that. The offense was a mess. The O-line was a mess. The wide receiver depth was thin. The only bright spot really was their defense, and Myles Garrett setting the sack record. Congratulations to him. The problem with the Browns, though, is it was rumored a lot of coaches were taking their names out of consideration for the Browns, meaning nobody wanted to go to this team because they just seem like the Titanic every year. They make it seem like running a football team is one of the hardest things to do. But step in Monken, and they basically found their guy. He is a first-time head coach at age 60. Feels like David Culley all over again. He was the Browns offensive coordinator a few years ago, so he does have some ties to Cleveland. The question will be is who is going to be the Browns quarterback? Who are they going to focus on? Because they still have people like Judkins who look pretty good on offense. Their defense is pretty set. They still have Myles Garrett for years to come. They're going to have to figure out what they want to do with Jerry Jeudy. They're going to have to figure out how they're going to rebuild this offense and who is going to be their quarterback. Are they going to turn back to Dylan Gabriel? Are they going to keep going with Shedeur Sanders? We shall see. The Browns do have to figure out their cap space, though. They have about negative $22 million, according to Over the Cap, in effective cap space, so they're not going to be spending a lot. Let's just say that. Like most of the teams on this list, they are going to be needing to restructure and find some money here. Monken has been working with Lamar Jackson, so if he does get somebody like Shedeur Sanders, helps him be a little more mobile, he could have a much better season, and the Browns could look a lot better behind that defense. So don't want to say the Browns are going to be repeating basically bottom of the barrel again, but it's a higher likelihood than not. Again, they just need offensive competency, and they can basically ride that defense, just kind of like the Texans could. But we'll see what Monken can get out of Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel or whoever they draft. Number 7, the Buffalo Bills and hiring Joe Brady. The Bills fired Sean McDermott after an impressive 12-5 season, but failing to reach the conference championship game. It's a Bills team that always has high expectations, but always kind of falls short. Josh Allen had another great season, thrown for over 3,000 yards and 25 touchdowns. Ownership fired McDermott and stated that they really need to just find a breakthrough in their new coach. Basically get their team to start that fire under them, get over that hump. They went with an internal hire. They promoted Joe Brady from offensive coordinator to the head coaching position. Like, look, I understand that you want to get somebody new, get some fresh blood, but you're bringing in somebody who's been a part of the team that basically isn't able to get over the hump. You're basically trading one guy who can't get over the hump to the other guy who can't get over the hump. I don't get it. Where I do think it's smart is that you have a guy who understands Josh Allen, knows how to use him, and they're going to carry that over, which is great. But again, it just kind of seems, hey, we want to get somebody who can get us over the hump, and we're going to hire somebody who wasn't able to get us over that hump. It just seems counterintuitive. I don't know. The Bills are in a tough spot cap-wise. Their effective cap space is about negative $11 million, so predicting a lot of restructures and things like that. Once they do that, they are going to be able to fill some of the holes they have because they don't have a lot. I think they can, get some people in the secondary, maybe a wide receiver for Josh Allen, and I think they'd be fine. So with that said, I think Josh Allen is going to be Josh Allen, get them into the playoffs. I think it's going to take a couple years, but I think they are eventually going to be able to make that jump and get into the Super Bowl and possibly win one for the city of Buffalo. Joe Brady, it's not my favorite hire, but it's not the worst hire at all. And I think that the Bills do have somewhat of a brighter future with an offensive-minded guy like Joe Brady. Number 6, the Baltimore Ravens hiring Jesse Minter. The Ravens had a very frustrating season. They were up and down. They looked horrible at the start of the season, then looked great towards the end of the season. The Ravens did end up firing John Harbaugh after another disappointing season, not in record, but in the fact that, they didn't make the Super Bowl. Ravens fans have been spoiled that they think that, replacing Harbaugh is going to be the easiest thing in the world. The Ravens ended up hiring Jesse Minter from the Chargers defensive coordinator role. The Ravens do have some cap space. It looks like their effective cap space is about $13 million before any restructures, trade. Their big loss will be Tyler Linderbaum if he does not re-sign with them, as he is entering free agency and he is one of the top centers in the market. And while I think this is going to be a big shakeup for the Ravens, especially in that locker room without Harbaugh after being there for so long, I think they're going to be able to continue to what they've been building and continue to dominate the AFC North. I think they could basically get 11 to 12 wins, especially in the AFC North that basically took a huge step back this year. So I think it's a very competitive division and one the Ravens could basically step in and continue to dominate. Lamar is still Lamar. He's a dual threat. He's always going to be up for MVP because he is that good of a quarterback. I don't think this hire is going to be a horrible one. I think it's a very solid one for the Ravens, and I think they are going to be basically contending for things in the future. Number 5, the Pittsburgh Steelers hiring Mike McCarthy. The Steelers were able to finish their season at 10-9 and make the playoffs, but get bounced in the first round of the Houston Texans. Their offense was average. It was not what people were expecting, but their defense was able to keep them in games, especially with TJ Watt and Fitzpatrick. They were able to basically keep them in games and get them to the playoffs. But after another playoff loss, Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers agreed to part ways, which led the Steelers to basically open up their coaching search. This is where Mike McCarthy is stepping in, and this move has been criticized by fans and analysts alike because people are thinking this is them trying to keep Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh by hiring Mike McCarthy. Others think this is just, hiring an older coach, guy who's gotten multiple chances, especially most recently in Dallas, and they didn't live up to expectations, so they're expecting, fresh blood, but they didn't get it. I understand both sides. Where I do think the hire is good is that Mike McCarthy does have a 60% win rate. He has playoff experience, and he basically knows how to right a bad ship. And I think retaining Rodgers would be the smartest move for the Steelers because, again, I don't love the free agent market of quarterbacks right now, so I think keeping Aaron Rodgers would be the smartest move here. The Steelers do have some cap space. Their effective cap space is apparently around $39 million, so they're going to be able to attract some free agents, and with that, that's not going to be very hard. So McCarthy is going to be able to reinforce Aaron Rodgers, reinforce that defense, whatever they need. They're going to be able to compete with most markets. They're a team that's always made it to the playoffs. They got a guy who's experienced in the playoffs now. They're going to have somebody like Aaron Rodgers. They don't need a whole lot to make it over that hump, so I think Mike McCarthy would be that right guy to right that ship. And I think the Steelers can definitely get some free agents there. I do think the Ravens are a little bit better than the Steelers, but I still have the Steelers going about 9 to 10 wins is ballpark where I have them next year for Mike McCarthy's debut season. I also find it a little romantic that they hired a guy from Pittsburgh, grew up watching this team, wanting them to win Super Bowls, so I kind of like that aspect too. Can't deny that part. Number 4, the Tennessee Titans hiring Robert Saleh. Titans had a very bad season. They finished at 3-14, and it was enough to get Brian Callahan fired. Wasn't entirely on the coach, if you ask me. Their team just wasn't good from the ground up, and I blame the GM more for that than anything. Cam Ward looked okay, but he had no protection. He had a rough rookie year, but I still think he has the potential to grow into something much better in the future. The Titans looked to Robert Saleh, former defensive coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers and former head coach of the New York Jets. And while Saleh has the pedigree of being a good head coach, I just don't love the move going to Tennessee. For a couple reasons. Because one, I want to see someone develop Cam Ward, and I think an offensive-minded head coach could have done that, especially somebody like a McDaniel or somebody else that was on the market, maybe a Stefanski. I don't like it for his development. They're going to have to get a good OC. They're going to have to figure all that out, but that's one major issue I have. The other is that if you look at Saleh's tenure as a head coach with New York, it wasn't great. But coming into Tennessee, he's going to have something that he really didn't have with the Jets. $93 million in cap space. Having $93 million in cap space will get basically anyone they want in Nashville. They can overpay. They can do anything like that, especially with a guy on a rookie quarterback deal like Ward still for another few years. This is a chance to basically rebuild whatever team Saleh wants in his image, not to mention having a very high draft pick. Especially with how the AFC South is shaking up, they are going to need a better defense, and that's why I think the Saleh hire ultimately was a good enough hire, because look at what the Texans have done. Their defense is dominant. The Jaguars have a much better offense. They need to be stopped. The Colts had a better offense. They're going to need to be stopped. So Tennessee building around defense while having a rookie quarterback like Ward to be able to build around as well with that much cap space, I think Saleh is going to get a real shot as a head coach he didn't have in the past. So it's not a horrible hire. I think Tennessee is going to be much better, but I still don't think they're going to dominate that division quite yet. I think they're going to possibly be 3rd or 4th. So we'll see how the draft goes, free agency goes, because I'm going to obviously do more videos like this when that happens. But as of now, good hire, but I don't see immediate turnaround just yet. Number 3, the Atlanta Falcons hiring Kevin Stefanski. The Falcons went 8-9 in 2025 and decided to move on from Raheem Morris. The team had high expectations, especially with Michael Penix being a second-year quarterback, Pitts taking that step forward, Drake London becoming a true number 1, and Bijan Robinson improving from his rookie year. That offense looks stacked. Defense on the other side, they used their first 2 picks on defensive players. It looked like they were revitalizing that team, especially in a very bad NFC South division. Didn't go the Falcons' way. It just felt like the offensive weapons were underused, and it just didn't feel like they really took that step forward. This is where the Falcons brought in Kevin Stefanski, a former 2-time Coach of the Year. And look, I think this is going to be one of the best hires of the cycle. You have an offensive-minded guy like Stefanski, who's never really had a quarterback like a Michael Penix, or even if they keep Kirk Cousins, even though they're saying they're going to trade him, but either way, he's going to have a guy that he can really run his offense through. Not to mention having weapons he never had in Cleveland. The other reason is that Stefanski brings stability into a bad franchise. Look at what he did with the Browns. The Browns started becoming playoff contenders under his tenure. The Falcons are going to do the same thing, especially in a very bad division. They're going to be able to compete for that division and not be a laughingstock anymore. I love this hire of Stefanski to the Falcons. I think it's going to be one of the best moves made all year. I think the Falcons make almost an immediate turnaround and win this division this year. Number 2, the Las Vegas Raiders hiring Klint Kubiak. The Raiders had a tough season. They ended up with the number 1 overall pick after going 3-14. They had Pete Carroll as their head coach and brought Geno Smith over from Seattle, and it just didn't work out. They drafted Ashton Jeanty as the first running back off the board and didn't utilize him right. I'm sorry, they didn't. It truly looks like the game has passed Pete Carroll, and it's time to basically move on. And they did that. The Raiders had the added benefit of having Tom Brady in their room deciding these moves with them, and they went with Klint Kubiak. Klint Kubiak is currently the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks and son of former NFL coach Gary Kubiak. The reason I love this move is they're bringing in a guy who ran one of the top offenses of the year in Seattle, who will have similar options in his new place in Las Vegas, outside a wide receiver because JSN is irreplaceable. But he's going to have guys like Brock Bowers, who's an established tight end, possibly one of the best in the league, and Ashton Jeanty, who's, I'm going to say, a bigger improvement on Walker if he's utilized correctly. And speaking of Jeanty, I think they're going to utilize him correctly, because if you know anything about the Kubiaks, they love to run the ball. They're going to run the ball. His dad did it. He did it. Jeanty's going to get fed. They also have the number 1 overall pick, which everyone is predicting will be Fernando Mendoza. I think Kubiak has a great mind of getting, what he needs out of quarterbacks because his dad was a backup quarterback. I think he has that translation of what QBs need to hear and give them a good season. So I like everything going on with the Raiders. They need to repair their relationship with Max Crosby because he needs to be the anchor on that defense. The Raiders also have $76 million in effective cap space, according to Over the Cap. And Las Vegas being an entertainment destination, I don't think it's going to be very hard to attract talent to Las Vegas. They are in the AFC West, which is a negative because that division is getting better. The Broncos are about to free up a ton of cap space, and we're 1 game away from the Super Bowl. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. The Chargers just got Mike McDaniel to unlock Justin Herbert, so they're going to be better. So they need to make this turnaround go quick, but I don't think it's going to be impossible. I see them getting maybe 8 or 9 wins their first season and then building off of that next year. So I like the Kubiak hire. I think it's going to make the AFC West the best division in football, and it's not even going to be a question. And number 1, the New York Football Giants hiring John Harbaugh. The Giants were one of those underdog teams last year that you were kind of rooting for because you like Cam Scatterbo, you like Jackson Dart, but it just ended up being a bad season, and it was mostly due to injuries. Scatterbo broke his ankle, Jackson Dart was in and out of concussions, Malik Neighbors was out the whole year, so it was enough to get Brian Daboll fired mid-season. Now enter John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh is the definition of consistency. He had the Ravens basically consistently being Super Bowl contenders, making the playoffs almost every single year. He is coming to an organization in New York that has all of its pieces it needs already. Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterbo, Malik Neighbors. Then if you look at the defensive side of the ball, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, Abdul Carter on the defensive side. They have a lot of pieces they already need. But with the 5th overall pick, they're going to get a bona fide stud that basically will be able to plug and play into the Giants system. And I think Harbaugh is going to turn this team around pretty damn quickly. It says they have about -$3 million in effective cap space, but again, restructures, trades, everything like that, they're going to get under that number. I'm not afraid of that whatsoever. And again, they have most of their pieces already. They don't need to do a whole lot. Not to mention Malik Neighbors coming back after a season of being hurt. Cam Scatterbo coming back after his injury. I think these guys are going to come back rested and ready to go next year. And the NFC East isn't that great. It's not that great. Cowboys disappoint every year. The Commanders took a huge step back after I was all in on them. The Eagles were the Eagles. Again, I think this is a division that is definitely winnable, and I think the New York Giants have a good chance with somebody like John Harbaugh under that helm. Again, I could see them being a 10-win team. Easily a 10-win team. But it all depends on what happens in free agency and everything like that. And that's my list, everybody. Let me know what you think down in the comments down below. Let me know where you rank these guys, who's the best hire in your opinion, where you think some of these teams are going to go with these new coaches. Let me know what you think. Make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Hit that little bell notification to get notified to all of my videos here. And until next one, have a good one.